So, the Dead or Alive 6 collaboration event is strong. Like, really strong. Really, really strong. We're going to talk about a few reasons why all of these characters are going to be very useful, and I'll be sure to point out which ones I think are really, really good. But I think all of these characters are going to have a place in the meta in their own right, so keep that in mind. But first, before we go any further, make sure you guys, if you haven't already done so and you're new here, you smash that like button and subscribe, because I do daily King of Fighters All-Star content when I'm not laying on a beach. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in today's video is of course going to be the Dead or Alive Volume 1 banner itself. This banner is going to boast special signature KASUMI, Dead or Alive 6 Angel of Paradise Neo Tengu, and Dead or Alive 6 Angel of Paradise Marie Rose. Now, the first thing that is going to stick out like a sore thumb here is going to of course be the fact that Netmarble decided for whatever reason to start making some of these characters for these collaborations special signature characters, and along with that tag, it does come with its pros and its cons. Of course, the pros being that with special signature characters, they do tend to be very strong because they do have that very long awakening rotation. However, they also come with a lot of downsides, specifically for collaborations when you consider the fact that new players are going to be the ones that these are specifically geared towards, are going to have a very tough time building these characters up to higher awakening levels, because this means that now instead of being able to build these characters on your own time, using dimensional invitations that you acquire over the course of playing the game as you get more and more generic fast memories, unfortunately now you are going to need to have copies of these characters in order to awaken them, which means you are going to have to invest that many more rubies, which is definitely not a good look and something that I definitely don't like to see, and I know a lot of people have already expressed their distaste with. So I'm not going to try and pile on to it, but it is something that I am not happy to see. However, they did go ahead and throw us a bone by making several of these special signature versions of these characters free, which is definitely nice, and we'll talk about later on in the video. But let's go ahead and focus on these three first. Now, the first character here is going to be the special signature version of KASUMI, and this is going to be a blue attack type with a leadership skill that increases attack type fighters' attack by 40% and their critical rate by 10%. This character overall is going to be just a quick, speedy, high damage dealing character. She doesn't have any dots on her kit that she can actually apply. If you take a look through her kit, she is going to be able to have shock damage on her kit. However, she doesn't apply it. She instead just deals it as a percentage of damage on her core, and she also has another core that increases her shock attack damage. So it would have been nice to see her have the actual application of shock on her kit, but beggars can't be choosers. Another nice thing about her is she does have the ability to reset 2 of her 3 active skills with her core on a cooldown of 12 seconds. She will be able to do that with her S2, so it's very nice to see this here. You always like to see resets of cooldowns with any of the kits on any of these characters lately, because so many characters boast it now that you really almost look for it whenever you are trying to decide whether or not a character is worth building. When we talk about the actual Dead or Alive exclusive core, you have a 70% chance to increase attack by 30% for 5 seconds upon landing an active skill, and also decreasing your own damage received from an attack, defense, or balance type enemy by 30% when attacked on a very low 5-second cooldown. So this character, when you look through her kit, she's going to have some pretty nice perks. She's of course going to have hyper armor like you see on most any character nowadays. She's going to be able to increase her own attack as well as decreasing the target's defense. She's going to have a 60% chance to remove the target's super or hyper armor, and that's actually on an interrupt with the same skill that can reset the 2 of her 3 skills on that core, and she's also going to be able to deal additional damage equal to 220% of her own attack to all enemies upon a successful attack guard included, which means that she is going to actually be very good for time attack, especially when coupled with the fact that she is so quick. So this character is really good. I don't necessarily think that she is going to be anything super special over the long run. I think this is a character that is probably bound to get replaced or to be kind of just on that fringe top tier when it comes to some of these collaboration characters, but if you do end up with her, just know that you're getting a very high damaging, very quick character. So overall, pretty nice. You just would have wished to have seen some more perks on there, such as being able to actually apply shock damage, as well as having a little bit better of a leadership skill, which does leave a lot to be desired. But moving on now, we'll talk about the Angel of Paradise Neo Tengu. Now this character, to my eyes, really just looks like a PvP unit for the most part. She does have an increase to balance type fighters attack by 30%, HP by 15%, and instantly recharges 5% of power upon defeating an enemy. This makes her really good for things such as time attack, where you want that power charge. So really good for that area of PvE. She's also going to be a purple balance type, which really isn't anything super special, nor anything that is going to come up very often. When you take a look at her cores, she does have some pretty good cores going on in here. She's going to have a 20% power charge rate increase, which is really nice. She's going to be able to increase her active skill damage by 30% for 7 seconds upon landing Shippu EX, and she is also going to have a PvP exclusive of decreasing the power charge rate of the attacker by 50% for 5 seconds when attacked on a cooldown of 10 seconds, and then on her final core, she increases her active skill damage dealt to the targets affected by darkness by 70%. So overall, really good core when you take a look at those. When it comes to her actual skills, she is going to be able to give herself super armor as well as apply blackout with her S1, and then on her S2 she is going to increase her own attack by 35% for 7 seconds with a 60% chance to remove the target's super or hyper armor, and then on her S3 she is going to become immune to damage for 4 seconds, which is really nice because that means that she is not going to be leaving herself open to attackers who can remove super and hyper armor. She's just going to flat out make herself immune to damage for 4 seconds, and that cannot be removed. So again, another nice thing for PvP. And then speaking of PvP, she rounds out her kit by having a PvP exclusive that removes 10% of the power from the target upon landing a skill or a guard. So overall, a character that I feel like is more than likely going to more so be for niche uses in PvE, such as time attack, where she is going to be pretty strong as a leader, and then she is also more so just going to be a character that I think is going to make waves in PvP more than anything, but still a really solid unit, and thankfully is not a special signature fighter, so you can build her up using dimensional invitations. Now finally, rounding out this banner, we are going to have the Angel of Paradise Marie Rose. Now this is yet again not going to be a special signature fighter, so you can build her using dimensional invites, and she is going to be a blue defense, which is actually a really solid typing. When you look at her leadership skill, she's going to increase defense type fighters attack by 30% and their HP by 15%, and they also obtain 5% power up on defeating an enemy. So another character that you are going to probably seeing a lot of use in things such as time attack because of that leadership skill, and it's very solid. When you take a look at her actual cores, she does have kind of a mixed bag here, but there's some pretty good stuff going on with this character. I actually like her quite a bit. She has a 20% power charge rate increase, and then she is also going to have the attacker is frozen for 3 seconds after 5 seconds when attacked on a cooldown of 18 seconds. This is something that is more so going to come up in PvP, but is still actually pretty decent for PvE as well. And then she also has a PvP exclusive core that gives her a 50% chance to disable special moves for 10 seconds. This is something that we have not seen very often, and this is something that is actually new to her. I really like this core for PvP, and I do think that this is going to make a big difference for her overall when it comes to that mode. Now when it comes to her final core, she's going to increase defense by 10% for 5 seconds upon landing an attack, and that stacks up to 5, so you can increase your own defense by up to 50%. So pretty nice overall. And then she's going to have the ability to gain 20% more power when her combo count is 10 or higher on a cooldown of 10 seconds. Really good overall. One other thing that is worth noting here is she is going to increase chill attack damage by 15%, which is going to be important when we take a look at these skills. On her skills, on her S1, she's going to have hyper armor and an interrupt. So again, these interrupts are going to always be something you want to see and are always going to be welcome. On her S2, she's going to have the increase to attack by 45% of defense for 8 seconds when using a skill, so she's going to have some defense to attack conversion, and then she's also going to apply Cold Spell for 6 seconds to the target upon a successful attack, something that you also would love to see because we don't see a lot of really top tier chill characters in the game. Next up, on her S3, she is going to deal chill damage equal to 2.5 times of the remaining chill damage and remove chill when attacking a chilled enemy, with a 70% chance to reset her cooldowns upon a successful attack, so she has Chill Explosion. Overall, this character I really like. Probably, in my opinion, if it were me, the character that I would want the most out of the three, just for personal reasons, because again, we don't see a lot of really solid chill characters out there. That and this character is just kind of adorable. So overall, like I said at the beginning of the video, all of these Dead or Alive characters have their uses and they're all going to be pretty solid. It really just comes down to who you think you could use the most, but in my opinion, the vast majority of the value for this collaboration as far as the characters are concerned is going to come from the second banner, which we are going to talk about next. Now, it's important to note that we don't necessarily know exactly when we are going to be getting the second banner for these characters. However, you can pretty much assume that we will be seeing it later on this week, probably on Wednesday night's reset into Thursday, but we don't have any 100% confirmation on that. However, I am pretty excited about it because it does appear as if it is going to feature at least one character that is probably going to be meta for a very long time. So let's go ahead and just go from the top here and work our way down. Now, the first character that you're going to see on this upcoming banner is going to be this Neo Tengu. Now, this is going to be a special signature version of this character, but I do think that this is definitely going to be the stronger of the two. She is going to be a red defense with a leadership skill that increases female fighters' attack by 45% and their power charge rate by 20%. Really, really solid overall leadership skill, and one that you would probably be using quite often. But again, keep in mind, this is going to be a special signature character, so if you're wanting to build her up to high awakening levels, you are going to need to invest quite a bit or get really, really lucky. Now, when it comes to her cores, she is going to have a 30% power charge rate increase, which is really nice. She's going to have a 15% bleed attack damage increase as well, and then on her cores down here, she's going to have decreases active skill cooldowns by 0.25% upon landing an attack on a bleeding target, with a PvP exclusive of a 50% chance to remove buffs from the target's active skills upon landing an attack on a cooldown of 15 seconds. So this is something that we had already talked about when we saw these characters release trailers and some of that test footage from the development videos. We had theorized that she was going to be able to decrease her own skill cooldowns whenever she landed an attack, and of course she is able to do so. This is very akin to what we saw with Boss Syndrome Ignis and is one of the strongest cores in the game currently. However, it does come with a caveat of needing to be landed on a bleeding target, so luckily they did try to balance it just a little bit, but still going to be something very, very powerful. On her final core, she's going to be able to cast a shield that absorbs damage for 7 seconds when attacked if her HP is 50% or more, and removes the shield when attacked 20 times on a cooldown of 25 seconds. So again, another thing that we have seen quite a bit of recently is going to be this core that casts the shield. So very nice overall. Her cores are really solid, and I do think this character is going to be really good whenever she releases. When we take a look at her overall skills, on her S1, she is going to be able to apply Bloodshed, which is really nice to see, as well as increasing her own attack by 47% of her defense for 8 seconds when using a skill. So overall, really, really nice S1. On her S2, she's going to have Hyper Armor, as well as increases the target's damage received by 22% for 7 seconds upon landing a skill, and it is an interrupt, another really solid skill. And then on her S3, she is going to be able to increase her own attack by 35% for 8 seconds, with a PvP exclusive of the target cannot activate buffs from active skills for 3 seconds upon landing a skill. So this is going to be a character that you could probably already tell is going to be very useful for not just PvE, but for PvP as well. I think this is going to be a character a lot of people are going to be a big fan of. However, it is unfortunate yet again that she is a special signature fighter, because she's going to be quite difficult to build up to high awakening levels, especially if you're on a budget. Next up, we are going to go ahead and talk about the swimsuit version of KASUMI. Now, this version of KASUMI is going to be a green defensive type who increases DOA 6 fighters' attack by 60% and decreases their HP by 10%. So a whopping 60% increase to the attack of any DOA 6 character is really nice. And you're starting to see a theme with the second banner. This is where a lot of the really strong leaders are. Now, when we take a look at her cores, this character is going to be able to give herself a 20% power charge rate increase. She's also going to decrease her own damage received by 85% for 4 seconds when she's attacked on a cooldown of 15 seconds, and gains damage immunity for 3 seconds upon using an active grab skill on a cooldown of 10 seconds. A lot of damage mitigation on this character, very tanky, especially when you take a look at some of these other cores in here, which also include a 15% poison attack damage increase, which will come up momentarily when we talk about her skills. Next up, she is going to increase attack by 35% when her HP is 80% or more, and gains 10% power when her combo count is 10 or above on a cooldown of 10 seconds. So overall, this character's core is already looking really solid, and being that she is not a special signature fighter, you can already tell this is a character that would probably be one that is worth building with dimensional invitations. However, when we talk about her skills, this is where things get more interesting. She is going to have super armor for 4 seconds when using a skill, as well as dealing venom damage, which is one of the better tier 2 dots in the game currently available. When we take a look at her S2, she is going to increase attack by 45% of her defense for 8 seconds when using a skill, and then freezes the enemy for 3 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included. Really solid S2, and really has a lot of versatility, especially when you consider the fact that this is a character that you could definitely see being useful in both PvP and PvE. Now on her S3, she's going to have a 100% chance to reset her cooldowns upon landing it, so that is something that you love to see, just a flat reset of all of her skills. That's going to be something that is going to be on a cooldown of 15 seconds, so a very short cooldown for something that powerful. And then she's also going to have Poison Explosion on her S3 as well, so this is going to be a really solid character in my opinion. Again, this second banner I feel like has a ton of value by comparison to the first one. Neither banner is bad, but I just am partial to this second banner because I think that these 3 characters are probably going to be the ones that are going to see the most longevity over the course of the next several months. However, speaking of longevity, the character that I think could end up being the one that is the winner of this entire collaboration is going to be the Angel of Paradise HONOKA. So this character here is going to be a red attack type, and she is going to have a leadership skill that increases DOA 6 fighters' attack by 45% and their power charge rate by 20%. Overall, as we've already said on the channel numerous times, leadership skills such as this are some of the best in the game, the most versatile for PvE, and that is something that bodes well for her going forward in this breakdown. But when we take a look at her overall cores, she is going to start off with a 30% burn attack damage increase, which is really good right off the bat. She's going to have a 20% power charge rate increase. She's going to have an increase to her penetration, an increase to her strike skills, etc., etc. The only reason I bring that up is because I am going to be talking about how I feel like this character has the potential to be one of the highest damage dealers in the entire game upon her release. Now, when we get into her final cores, she is going to be able to stun for 3 seconds upon attacking targets affected by burn or starlight on a cooldown of 7 seconds. This character does have a mixed dot kit of burn and starlight on her skills, which we're about to talk about. On her PvP exclusive, she's going to apply the buffs from the active skills owned by the target for 5 seconds upon landing an active skill cooldown of 10 seconds. Now, basically what this translates to, as best I can tell, is she can steal buffs, or at least copy buffs, which, if that is the case, could end up being something that is going to get pretty wild in PvP. I'm pretty excited to see how this works in practice because I feel like that could be something that could make for some pretty entertaining matches. On her final core, she is going to increase active skill damage dealt to the targets affected by Burn and Starlight by 50% and gains 20% power when her combo count is 10 or above on a cooldown of 10 seconds. These cores are really stacked, and I don't think that you guys need me to explain to you why this character already looks like she is going to be extremely good. Now, on to her skills. On her S1, this character has a lot going on here. She's going to have hyper armor, so that's going to be something right off the bat that you love to see. She's also going to have Infernal Flame, which is again the tier 2 dot for burn, as well as being able to be an interrupt. So again, extremely good. When we talk about the free version of this character, the fact that this skill here is basically going to be the same animation is going to be something that is going to be very important, because the animation on this interrupt skill is really quick and honestly very akin to what we saw with the Tekken Paul, and that character had a lot of longevity because of that skill, almost just for that reason alone. So this character is going to be something very special in my opinion. On to her S2, you're going to be able to use this to increase your attack by 35% for 7 seconds, as well as giving her a damage immunity. So damage immunity for 4 seconds again means that she is not going to have to be hiding behind hyper armor or super armor, meaning that that will not be removed by specific types of attacks in the game. So again, really solid. On to her final skill, which is going to of course be her S3. She is going to deal radiant damage for 7 seconds, so the tier 2 version of Starlight is going to be on the S3 there. Again, she does have a mixed kit of Burn and Starlight, which is really a solid overall mix, and then she has a 70% chance to reset cooldowns upon a successful attack on a cooldown of 15 seconds. This character, in my opinion, both versions of HONOKA are going to be the best ones in this collaboration, in my opinion. We'll talk more about the free one when we get to that point during the breakdown of the actual events. However, I am personally going to be waiting for volume 2 of these banners because I want one copy of this character, because I'm going to max her out immediately and be bringing you guys all sorts of fun showcases, because I do think that this character could potentially, possibly, maybe rival SS Kyo for damage output. Time will tell, but I do think that this character has that sort of potential. So that is pretty much what we're looking at with these characters. Again, you guys, every single one of these characters is really solid. I don't think that there's necessarily a bad investment here, but there are going to definitely be ones that you could make a case for that are going to be stronger than the others. So that is going to pretty much be the characters. Let's go ahead and talk about the cards, because those are going to be very important to whether or not these characters are going to see a lot of play over the long term. And spoiler alert, I think that they are definitely going to be able to see a lot of gameplay over the next several months because of these cards specifically, because they are extremely powerful. So taking a look at the card banner, we're first going to start off here with the Rest During Training set, and this set is going to be absolutely OP. So basically what we're taking a look at here is going to be right off the bat the increase to attack by 7% per card, which is going to be kind of standard fare, and then you get into the exclusive effects. First one being an increase to Dead or Alive 6 fighters' critical rate by 7% and their critical damage by 70%, as well as a 50% chance to increase Dead or Alive 6 fighters' attack by 20% for 5 seconds upon landing a critical hit. So overall, this set is extremely powerful. Me and Steven have already been talking about it quite a bit. He actually has this set on his fully awakened HONOKA, the free-to-play version, that is, the SS version that is out there right now, and she is able to almost rival the damage output of an SS Kyo with a set such as this. Now, this set I think is one you are going to definitely want to eyeball if you're planning on investing into these banners in any considerable way. You'll want to make sure that you budget for the cards, because these cards are going to make or break the performance of some of these characters, and I could not recommend this set any more highly it is going to take your damage output and it is just going to cause it to skyrocket. Definitely don't sleep on this set, because I do think that this is going to be something that is a must-have for these characters going forward if you're planning on using them over the long term. Now, next up, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the actual 3PG finishers for each one of these characters, because each one of them is going to boast its own effect. Now, one thing to keep in mind is none of these finishers have particularly long animations, at least by comparison to Boss Syndrome or SS characters that we've seen in the past, but these extra added effects are going to be something that is very nice and worth noting. So first up here on Kasumi, she is going to decrease her damage received by 50% for 5 seconds after using this, so she has some definitely nice damage mitigation with this, and overall a really nice little effect as a bonus add-on for using that finisher. Next up, Neo Tengu's finisher is going to increase her attack by 10% for 10 seconds when using it, another really nice little add-on effect, but not anything too game-breaking. Next on Honaka, she's going to increase her critical rate by 5% and her critical damage by a whopping 20% for 10 seconds. This is probably the best of all of these. This one here, again, I cannot say it more than I already have said it. Honaka, both versions, absolutely ridiculous, and in my opinion, they are the must-haves from this collaboration. Now, finally, you have Marie Rose. Marie Rose is going to recover her HP by 8% when using this. Not anything too game-breaking or too special, but still a nice little bonus effect. Now, moving on, we have 2 option cards. The first one is going to be the Kunoichi of Destiny. Now, this one's going to increase attack by 5% and increase critical rate by 2.5%, as well as increasing Dead or Alive 6 fighters' critical damage by 20%. Another really good critical damage option card to go along with all of the other crit option cards that we have currently in the game. This one is, of course, going to be geared specifically toward Dead or Alive 6 characters and is really, really solid, and a card that I do think, while not necessarily a must-have, is probably going to be one that you want to try out on your favorite Dead or Alive 6 characters, again, specifically for a character such as Honaka, who already going to have so much crit that is going to be ridiculous. And then finally, we have the Naughty Tengu Princess. This one's going to increase attack by 5% and decrease skill cooldowns by 1.2, and then you are also going to have the special effect of increasing attack by 13% for 5 seconds and granting super armor for 2 seconds when tagging in a Dead or Alive 6 fighter. This card overall is going to be really good, specifically for things such as Guild Raid, if you're planning on using a Dead or Alive 6 character in that mode. So any mode where you're going to be tagging in and out, this is going to be a really solid option. But overall, being the fact that it does have cooldown reduction of 1.2 seconds, that is something that you're going to want to keep in mind. It's going to make this card just that much more versatile across other modes, and overall, while there's probably going to be better options for some of those other modes where you're not going to be tagging in and out than this one for your Dead or Alive 6 characters, it's still going to be a really solid card. So the cards this time around are actually all really solid, with the highlight, of course, being the set. The set, in my opinion, is going to be the best thing going here. And then when it comes to any of the finishers, I do think that Honaka, again, is the big winner here with this really nice increase to her crit and her crit damage. So that's what we're looking at with the cards. Now let's go ahead now and talk about everything else going in this update, because there's quite a bit to talk about. So the first thing that is worth talking about is going to, of course, be the new UI, as well as the new reward system for our daily and weekly missions. This is something that a lot of people were really worried about, specifically in regards to the fact that Absolute War was going to be replacing Infinite Battle. I know when those patch notes came out, people were worried that we were going to be losing rubies, but I am happy to report that we should now be getting even more free-to-play rubies than ever before, thanks in part to the fact that we get these awesome loot boxes that are going to be stacked with great items on this mileage, as well as just having more rewards on here in general than we have ever had, specifically as it pertains to rubies. So overall, this new UI system needed to happen to begin with, because we had been sitting on this kind of truncated and outdated UI for quite a long time, pretty much ever since the game was released. So that was one part of this, but really the biggest MVP of this entire UI update is going to be the updates to the mileages here. So I think that in the end, for those of you who were worried about the game taking a hit as far as its viability for free-to-play players, I do feel like that has only improved with this specific part of this update, specifically as it pertains to these lucky boxes, because as you can see, these are stacked with value. So overall, for all of you free-to-play players out there who are worried, I would say you do not have to worry too much, because this is an amazing quality of life upgrade for you, and one that should bear more rubies in the long term. As far as the KASUMI x KASUMI event is concerned, this event is actually pretty basic and pretty easy for the most part. Most anybody is going to be able to get through this without much of any effort. The biggest claim to fame for this one is of course going to be the rewards for it, because the rewards here are actually going to be very, very good. This is going to be one of those dungeons where you're basically just going to be grinding it for the coins that it drops, and then eventually you'll be able to use those coins in the craft menu for the following items. So first up, you're going to have affinity boxes. These are going to be mystery boxes for random affinity items for the specific Dead or Alive 6 characters. And then of course you will have the gold mystery boxes as well. Now the big thing here is of course going to be this option card that you can craft that is going to be geared towards grab skills. This card is actually low-key really, really powerful, and in my opinion is a must craft before the end of this event. So make sure you guys take advantage of this, because this is definitely worth every bit of investment that you make as far as your time into this mode, because this card is going to be very good. Now when it comes to the Beach of Paradise event, this is probably my favorite event of all of the Dead or Alive 6 events that came along with this update. Basically you're going to be able to go through this tiered system, and you'll have to go ahead and use nothing but Dead or Alive 6 characters, but the rewards that you're able to get from this are going to make it 100% worth it, because you're going to get a ton of rubies, you're going to be able to get best memories, you're going to be able to get hammers, you're going to be able to get stones, all sorts of really important items. So make sure that you guys get your free-to-play characters and build them up as best you can at minimum, so that you can get as much out of this as possible, because this event is worth it. Now talking about the rush dungeon, this rush dungeon is going to be something that is largely going to be similar to what we've seen in the past with other rush dungeons, but basically you're going to want to build up teams that are going to be centered around your Dead or Alive 6 characters and cards, and then more of those characters and cards that you're able to put onto a team, the more coin that you're going to be able to get from grinding this thing. Now of course the big thing here is going to be the exchange shop, because the exchange shop this time around is extremely good. It's going to have all sorts of good items in here, including selection boxes for your imprint stones, as well as a really powerful free-to-play set. This set here increases attack by 7% per card, with an increase to the attack by 12%, and you also gain 3% power upon defeating an enemy. This card set is extremely good for free-to-play players, and a must-have in my opinion, especially if you're going to be a free-to-play player that lacks a lot of FES options out there. So definitely make sure that you try to get this card set. Now these next two events are going to prove to be fairly controversial, but the Dead or Alive 6 Memory Carnival is going to be a carnival in which you need to acquire memories, whether it's through making dimensional invitations, using tickets, summoning fighters using your actual rubies on the banners themselves, whatever the case may be. You will be able to get points towards the mileage, and the more points you get, the closer you will get to being able to unlocking SS HONOKA herself, as well as the repeat reward being her memories, in which you can fully awaken her for free if you are able to get enough memories to do so. Now, the SS version of HONOKA, I am happy to report, is one of the best actual characters on this entire collaboration. This character is just a pure damage stick, which is sort of surprising, especially when you consider the fact that she is a yellow defensive unit, which is kind of absurd in my opinion, but me and Steven have been talking about this quite a bit. We both have her at Awakening level 5, and from everything that we have gathered from using her over the course of the past several days, we pretty much have come to the conclusion that this is going to be one of the best characters not only in this collaboration, collaboration, but potentially in the game currently, just because her S1 is so absurd. This character is just absolutely nutty, and I think that this is going to be a character that a lot of people out there are going to want to try to make sure that they get as many memories for as possible. My overall advice to you guys is try to use some of the tickets or tokens you've been sitting on for quite a while. If you have the ability to use the dimensional exchange to go ahead and make dimensional invites for this character so that you can get the extra points towards the mileage, go ahead and do so. Whatever it takes, go all in, because she is 100% going to be worth it. Now, the Marie Rose Lucky Chance event is going to be admittedly something that is an acquired taste, but basically what you're going to see here is you're going to have a ton of different missions that you can grind over the course of this event, and as you grind through here, you will acquire these coins, and then those coins are going to allow you to roll on this board. Now, this board here is going to be absolutely stacked when it comes to what items are going to be available on here. As you can see, you're going to have everything from selection boxes for your DOA 6 stones, to tokens for not only the Volume 1 banner for the fighters, but also the upcoming Volume 2 banner, as well as the card banner. You're also going to be able to get hammers on here for your stones. You're going to be able to get skip tickets, capsule boxes, and even Chapter of Fight skip tickets, which I know, even though Chapter of Fight is conspicuous by its absence currently after this update, it will return, and when it does, you will be happy to have those. But overall, this event really is just going to require a lot of grinding. My advice to everybody out there is really just look through those missions and see which ones are going to be easier for you than others. Specifically, ones that are going to yield you a decent amount for the effort are going to be things like enhancing your hammers, or your stones rather, as well as being able to increase your affinity or your levels of your fighters. So maybe take a look at some of those and try to grind on those and get as much out of this as you can. But when you really take a look at it, it is going to be worth it in the long run to do that. Now, as far as the SS version of Marie Rose is concerned, as a free-to-play character, she is going to be very nice. Now, she has a great leadership skill, not necessarily the greatest typing in the world, but for a free-to-play character, she has a lot of perks on her kit that are going to make her stand out. She's going to have things such as hyper armor, super armor. She's also going to have quite a few increases to her damage, as well as having radiant damage on her kit. She is a character that, while not going to be necessarily the strongest character in this collaboration, I do think is going to be a super solid free-to-play option. And while it may upset people that she is locked into this event, I don't necessarily think that this event is going to be something that is as difficult as some people make it out to be, especially when you consider the fact that you have an entire event window to get through this thing and get as many memories for her as possible. Now, she also has Starlight on her kit, which is also going to be something you really like to see, especially considering the fact that Starlight has proven itself to be one of the more important dots in the game currently as it sits right now. So really what I would recommend to you guys, again, is look through those different events and see which ones pertain to you, as far as which ones will be easier for you to grind and do in order to get bonuses towards that board, because that board again is going to be extremely stacked, and really it just comes down to what you decide you want to do here. You can decide to focus on her memories, or you can just focus on the items themselves, because you will be able to reset the board each time you get her memory or you get her, and so it's going to be pretty much up to you on whether you want to keep going and getting those items, or you just want to reset immediately. Now, next up we have the Special Signature Fighter Memory Craft System. Now, basically what this is you are going to be able to use up to 3 of the memories for the non-SS versions of the Dead or Alive 6 characters, and you can craft up to 2 generic SS memories, meaning you can bank those for future SS King of Fighters characters, or you can just go ahead and use them towards the SS Dead or Alive 6 characters. That decision is going to be largely up to you on what you want to do here, but it is nice that they allowed for this. I just wish that they would have allowed us to craft more than 2 of them, because that would have given this a lot more value than it already has, but I digress. It's still not too shabby. Now, when it comes to Absolute War, I know a lot of people were worried about Infinite Battle going away and being replaced by this new mode, but luckily, this is mostly just a side grade from what we had with Infinite Battle. Now, the big thing everybody was worried about was the Ruby rewards for your ranking, and luckily, that has not changed too much, and when you consider the fact that they've pretty much redistributed whatever little rubies they might have taken away here for these rankings into other modes or other systems in the game, such as the daily and weekly rewards, this really isn't that big of a deal, and really not much has changed. When it comes to the actual structure, it's pretty much largely the same, except now things are best 2 out of 3 per battle, and you'll still have your 3 dailies. You can go ahead and use 10 rubies to get extra fights in here, which is important with the fame system that we'll talk about momentarily, and then if you have run out of good fighters to use, you can go ahead and invest an extra 500 rubies to reset your roster and be able to do more fights with the same fighters that you've already used for your dailies. But overall, this thing does promote quite a bit of competition. I know I've invested a decent amount of rubies into building up my rank myself, just so that I could get the extra fame points, which in my opinion are definitely going to be worth it. But overall, I do think that this is something that is going to be a big upgrade from Infinite Battle, at least in my opinion. I actually really like this mode, and while some people may not, I personally am a big fan, and this is something I've been putting a lot of my time and efforts into whenever I play my dailies. So it's up to you on whether you feel like investing any rubies for the extra fights or the extra fame are going to be worth it. But in my opinion, when we talk about the fame system itself, it is definitely going to be something that you're investing in for the long term more than the short term, because those points are going to become pretty slow, and building up your trees for your fame system are going to take a little bit of time. But I do think that doing this is going to be extremely rewarding down the road. Now, it's up to you on which color you want to go ahead and invest in first, and which of these stats that you want to prioritize. Me personally, I am going to be investing in attack and penetration for each color first, and then I'll move on to some of the other stats. That's just my personal preference. All of the things we're talking about today, I'm going to do full videos on in the future and give you guys better breakdowns as far as more in-depth stuff. But for me personally, the fame system right now is something that you just take at your own pace, however you want to do it, but really it isn't something that you're going to see major gains from right away. It's more of an investment into the future. I'm just going for yellow currently because of SS Kyo and HONOKA and BS Chrysalid, so on and so forth. Those are characters that I see myself using the most. So overall, you guys, it's up to you on what you want to do here. I'll bring you a more detailed guide down the road, but I do really like this system. As far as the DOA 6 stones are concerned, the Circle Stone is going to decrease defense by 20% for 4 seconds when a DOA 6 fighter lands an active skill, which is really good. On the Square Stone, you are going to have an increase to your target's damage received by 10% for 4 seconds when you land an active skill with your DOA 6 fighter. And then finally, when you talk about your Hexagon Stone, you're going to increase your DOA 6 fighter's active skill damage by 10%. So coupled with the fact that we get a ton of options as far as being able to get these stones, because we have a lot of different ways of getting selection boxes, I do think that it is 100% worth maxing out a full set for every DOA 6 fighter you plan on using, because each and every one of these stones is really powerful. Now, one last thing that is worth noting here is going to be the login event, because the login event itself, while it does have a lot of really nice items, also has an exclusive option card that's going to increase attack by 3.2%, increase critical damage by 1%, and increase attack by a further 8% for 5 seconds when a DOA 6 fighter lands a crit. So overall, while not the best option card in the world, as a free option, another really nice little bonus for this event, and goes alongside very nicely with some of the other cards that we've seen and already spoken about. So overall, that is pretty much going to be the main points of the update, you guys. I know this was an absurdly long video, but unfortunately this was an absurdly big update with a lot of things to talk about, and while we've only really kind of scratched the surface of some of the details in some of these things, I am planning on doing full videos on some of these new game modes over the course of the next couple of days, as well as spotlight videos on these characters where we break them down more in depth. Me personally, I am not planning on investing any rubies into this banner or any of the subsequent banners until I actually get a chance to look at all of these characters in action, because because again, I am more so eyeballing that second banner for the fighters, and I'm definitely going to be going for the cards. That is something we'll likely do later on this week, but being that I was on vacation this entire week and was not able to cover this update, I wanted to make sure I got this video out to you guys, whether it was going to be 45 minutes or not, just so that way I got my initial thoughts out of the way and we could break down more in depth later on. But that's going to be the video, you guys. Like, share, and subscribe. I will see you all in the next one. You all take care. Peace.
Game over.